Hi again. In this quick tip video, we're going to take a look at managed paths in SharePoint. This topic comes up a lot. So what I did is I used the Xmind mind mapping tool to put together a diagram. And I'm just going to kind of talk about the different managed paths. In this example, talk about 4 of them. But before we get into that, as we would kind of get into more detail of the contents of these, we could also use Xmind to drill down into particular areas. So I think as we expand the usage of this map, when you come back for future videos, you would be able to see kind of a drill down into certain areas of the map. For instance, I'll drill down on the community of interest, and you could see in here that we could continue to stub that out and get more detail when we want to start really diving into community of interest types of managed paths. But for today, we're simply going to look at the high-level map. So let's get it centered there. So managed paths tend to be put together in order to do a couple things. One is provide for a certain amount of security within the managed path itself, and 2, to perform kind of a certain function of SharePoint features. Sometimes all people want is an organizational site, what we would call an org managed path, so that the contents of that particular site collection and sites beneath it really relates to one organization for their use internally. So I tend to think of an org as a private, internally facing types of site collections. And the reason we could use the org managed path is it would show up in the URL, and you could see pretty easily that this particular type of a managed path is just for the people that are a part of that particular department. As a result, the types of sites that you might see in an org managed path would be more internally information focused, such as employee contact lists or information, policy documents, really only for that department, not to be shared with the greater organization. And also perhaps human resources information that might have to do with personnel files, salaries, general HR types of things, as well as events that only apply to that organization. The point to remember on the org managed path type of sites is you shouldn't be able to accidentally stumble upon an org managed path when you're on SharePoint. And there's basically a reason for that, because if you're not a part of that organization, you really don't need to be in that site. The other kind of side of the spectrum would be the next managed path, which is what we would call a marketing managed path. That's for the types of customers that want a web presence. Let's say they want their intranet page up on the corporate system. So a marketing site tends to be quite public facing, and anybody would normally be able to hit that who has access to SharePoint in general. Types of sites that you might see, or even types of pages you might see with the marketing managed path, would be information about your department that you want the rest of the organization to see. Leadership biographies, org charts, news, announcements, upcoming events, as well as certain materials that your department publishes for consumption by the larger organization. Maybe making your logos and images available, forms that people fill out as they interact with your particular department, tools, processes, and templates. Again, the marketing or public facing presence of the site. So you can tell the org sites, the only ones that you probably should be in as an org site would be your own, more tightly controlled. Marketing sites still maintained at the organizational level, at the department, however open to the rest of the organization. One of the reasons for marketing sites is so that people don't have to be sending emails back and forth a lot to get tools or templates or logos. They can just be directed to go to the department's marketing site. That brings us to the third one. It's a very popular one, the COI, community of interest type of managed path, which tends to be where a lot of what are known as team sites would reside. So from a functionality standpoint in SharePoint, if you have a project that's getting ready to start and you're putting the team together in this schedule, and let's say this project's going to last 6 months, a community of interest type of site might be good for that particular project, especially if you're intending to invite people from other organizations into your site. So think of these as project team sites. Maybe there's planning and collaboration efforts that are going on. But the bottom line here is a community of interest site is open to whoever you would like to invite to it, meaning your own people from your department, or as it tends to be, other departments that are outside of your organization that you rely on for that particular project to be successful. In those particular types of sites, you'll see project workspaces, document libraries to share and collaborate on documents that are part of a project, tasks that relate to the project and discussions, things like that. So we tend to consider these COI managed path type of site collections and sites as collaboration sites. And that brings us to the end, which is the last one, which is the apps or applications. I would think in a thumbnail kind of description would be, if someone has come to you with a particular business requirement that requires a custom SharePoint solution, there's a pretty good chance that the managed path that will be used to house that type of solution, meaning its site collection and sites, would be an apps managed path. That would be a type of a solution that was built for a particular department. However, the type of solution may be valuable to other organizations in the larger enterprise, or down the road be replicated for other types of needs. So a good example would be if I've got the apps managed path and I have a customer support solution that I've built. And the role in this particular requirement was for an action tracking, like a task tracking type of solution that also provides FAQ, frequently asked questions, and feedback mechanisms, document access by a large audience, which could be a little bit different than the collaboration sites where you're putting documents up there a lot. This one might be more of a, I'm going to access a document to help me do customer support. Workflows and SharePoint notifications that are put into use to notify users about the status of this customer support action tracking. There might be a need to use a voting module, a SharePoint feature for voting or surveys, and to publish dashboards and reporting types of pages, as well as general reporting directly, maybe exports to comma delimited files or to Excel, or just tabular reporting. Another type of apps managed path site can be a data management site, where it's pretty much intensive data related records management and reporting, data analysis, and strategic decision making. So when these types of application solutions get built, they are built for a particular purpose. Now they may exist just in someone's site collection, but the spirit is that they are solutions that could be replicated in the future for use in other departments. So let's just say department number 1 has an action tracking type of site that was built for them, and it's a managed solution site that was built. And a year later, another organizational department sees that or is told about that particular application that was built, and they like it a lot. Well, if it's in the apps managed path, maybe they start talking about saving a copy of that application without its data, and then maybe making a couple of minor tweaks to it, so then it could be put to use in the other department for their particular customer support or data management needs. When we do that, we end up saving a lot of time in development as well as in testing in order to produce an application that was built a year ago for one department and then make it available, basically another copy of it available to another organization quickly and efficiently. So that's kind of the highlight of this video today. Managed paths take on various names based on what people want to call them, but a pretty good down the middle of the road type of approach are these 4. The organization, which is private, internally facing sites. The marketing type of managed path, which tends to be the more web page of the department, public facing. The community of interest type of site, or also what we can refer to as team sites, that you can do projects in that have a start and an end, that normally bring in other people from the enterprise. But again, they do have an end point. The project site will tend to get decommissioned or archived, and then new projects can be started later in that same managed path. Or finally, this applications managed path, which tends to house the larger, more strategic, and a little bit maybe more complex solutions that are built and delivered in response to a particular requirement by the business. That's about it. Thanks for listening.